Are you afraid that the emails you're writing for your customers are not making it to the inbox? Well, today we're going to share with you the 3 records that we add to every single account that we create to ensure that we give it the best chances that every email you write ends up in the regular folder and not the spam folder. So stay tuned, build along with us, and make sure to like and subscribe our channel so we can get more videos like this to you. So today we're going to share with you how to avoid getting into spam, and more importantly, all the tips and tricks that we use when we set up a client and for ourselves to ensure the best email deliverability possible. Now, we're going to go over quite a few details and quite a few things. We're going to try to stay away from theory and go more into the tactics so you can apply these right away. So if you've been following along in some of our earlier videos, we've been demonstrating and showing you how to properly set up your DNS records, properly set up your domain, and even set up a Google Workspace account. That's going to be kind of what we're going to be using to set up the records. And we showed you basically how to move everything over to Cloudflare and so forth and so on. So today, try to follow along because we're going to start with the number one thing that you need to do, which is ensure you have the best records attached to the account. Now, there are 3 main records that we're going to use that are going to be put inside your DNS manager, your record manager, where you put all your DNS records, and to ensure the best deliverability. The first one happens to be your DMARC record. Now, a lot of places, Google Workspace, Cloudflare, and a couple of other email providers, they already give you the instructions on how to do this. But I'm going to make it believe that we have no idea what it is, and more importantly, that you don't even know how to put the record in. So we're going to really start from scratch, and we're going to add each record one at a time. And then we're going to start getting into the other practices that you need to ensure you do to ensure that you get the best deliverability going forward. So the first thing that I always do is, I don't know what a DMARC record is. I know that I need one. I'm going to just type in DMARC, and I'm using Google, so I'm going to type in Google Workspace. Okay, and if I type in, you see there's a bunch of things that come up, but I usually look for Google Support because that is what I'm working with. And if I click in, what's great about Google Support is it gives you the 3 records that we're going to be discussing today. It talks about your DMARC record, your DKIM, and your SPF. And it tells you what those 3 records specifically do. Now, I keep referring to records. What are records? Well, if you've been following along, records are basically, and again, there's going to be a lot of technical experts that will argue with me. I'm just trying to make it simple for everyone to understand. Basically, it's like directions for the internet of like how things work. And you need certain records in order for certain things to happen. One, you need to, when you get a Google Workspace account, you need to have records saying that, hey, all my email is coming from Google, and if you need to send and if I need to deliver email, here are the directions how to do it. For instance, these are the MX records. Now, again, not going to get into the super technical, but just to give you a general idea of what it is. If there's somebody out there with better explanations, by all means, leave in the comments, search for them. But I just want to make sure your brain kind of gets cleared and why you need these things. Now, the first one we're going to add is the DMARC record. The DMARC records lets you tell receiving servers, that means the people that are coming and getting your emails, what to do with outgoing message from your organization that don't pass SPF and DKIM, which again, all these 3 records work together and in conjunction. But as you can see, it even gives you an example of the perfect record you got to put in, and we're going to teach you exactly what you need to change in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, if I follow the instructions, it says add a text record. So I'm using Cloudflare. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go ahead and add a text record, and for the name required, I'm going to put _DMARC. And then when I do that, I'm literally going to copy the record here. Again, this is the one with the none value. All you're going to do is P equals none, just like so, and you're good to go. So for instance, again, you know what? Why don't we just leave it as the none, and then we can kind of go back and we can change it at any point in time. And that's a cool thing about the DMARC record. You can always change it up and go from there. Now that we have the DMARC record, the next record I usually like to focus on is your SPF. Now, SPF is basically it helps prevent your spoofing. So if you go all the way back up and go back to that article we first saw, it gives you a quick little definition. It specifies the servers and domains that are authorized to send email on your behalf of the organization. Now, if somebody like kind of gets a hold of it and starts sending on your behalf, SPF will definitely say, hey, there's something crazy going on. Somebody seems to be sending email on your behalf and they're not authorized inside of your account. When you're using email servers, like I mentioned before, like ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, and other services like that, Mailgun and SendGrid, you're going to have to enable your SPF to allow those particular servers to send out on your behalf. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create the SPF record. The guide here that I have in Google, just in case I don't know how to create a record, I have the SPF, and if you go all the way down, there is an area here before you set up, define your SPF record, and then we're just going to go define your SPF record, basic setup. There's videos in here how to do it. Now, again, if you're using Google, this is the directions for Google. If you're going to be using Microsoft, there are different directions in Microsoft. But basically, all you're going to do is give permission to whatever email service providers you're sending. They're either sending on your behalf or going out. So for instance, if you're going to be sending out of ActiveCampaign, or if you're going to be sending out of Mailgun or SendGrid, this will also have an include for the particular addresses for the SPF for those email service providers. Now, because we did Google Workspace, it automatically provides you the one for Google. So I'm just going to copy that. And I have this record already, as you can see, because when I created it originally with Google Workspace and I had Cloudflare connected, it actually auto-created the record for me, which again, to my surprise, was a brand new thing. But for instance, if you didn't know, or if it didn't move over and you need to create it, it's another text record. You're going to hit Add Record. You're going to come over here. You're going to go ahead and hit Text. You're going to come over to the name. And the name is basically, it tells you everything that you got to do here. The name is going to be just the root right here, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to put in the content, which is the V equals SPF include underscore, like everything that you copied and pasted directly from here. Now, there's other different things you can do, authorize things for domains and all that, but this gets super important, super complicated, I should say, not important, and it might just take a little while to figure out, but for basic setup, this is all you really need. And again, if you're using other services, remember, you're going to add to this code. Now, we'll show you how to do this in later videos when we actually set up like an email service provider, but for now, this will get you going and at least ensure that this is particular record is set up. Now, we set up the DMARC, we set up the SPIF. The next record that's important is we're going to be setting up, and again, all I would do is hit save. But remember, I already have this record corrected, and you don't want to have two SPFs under the same domain. Now, you can have an SPF for a different subdomain, but again, super complicated. Don't want to get into that. Make it super simple. So far, we have our DMARC, we have our SPF. The last record that we're going to create is our DKIM. Now, on a fairly new created account, if it's a brand new account for Google, and I think Microsoft is the same process, I can tell you that the Microsoft process of adding a DKIM record is different than Google. There are a whole set of rules that you have to do in there, but just like I did here with looking up Google support for the DKIM and the SPF and the DMARC, you would do the same thing for Microsoft or whatever email service provider you're using. Right, so the next record we're going to set up is the DKIM record, right? So for that one, and if you're using Google, it's going to be one way. If you're using a Microsoft Office 365, that is completely set of different directions in adding a DKIM record. But just like I am now in the Google support docs, this is how you would search for it to it, but we're going to walk you through it. So what I'm going to do, and it tells you what it does, right? It helps prevent spoofing, and it helps deliver messages to recipients' inboxes. Pretty important, and trying to avoid your mail from going into spam. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on DKIM for our domain, and you're like, well, how do I do that? Remember those 9 little dots that we used when we created a Google Workspace account? Well, here, believe it or not, is where you're going to be able to access everything. But what we're looking for in general is we're looking for the admin area. Now, it usually is in here, and if for whatever reason it is not a big deal. All you got to do is just come back to your email account that you're signed in on, and that should have your admin, unless they decided to hide it. There it is. And when you click on your admin, easiest cheat way to do this is it's gonna ask you to sign in and verify. Again, you're going to put in your passcode. Okay. And basically, it's going to come in. As you can see, it's got my information, as you see here, in my admin account. And what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to type in DKIM. Super easy to do. Right on the search field. And then when it does, it brings me to this screen. Now, if you have a brand new account, meaning you just got your Google Workspace account set up, DKIM you really can't do. It takes anywhere from like 3 to 4 days. Now, it's been I think, close to 4 days since we set up the actual email address. So my hope is that it's not going to give me an error when I try to generate this record. But if I do get an error, then I'm going to have to come back and wait until I can set up my DKIM, because it does take some time in order for you to create this. And again, that was a lesson learned by us, because we would create accounts, try to create the DKIM, and we would generate all these errors. But the main thing is, if you're getting an error, it's probably because the account is too new and it just needs some time to be established, right? So hopefully we won't get that here. So I'm going to go ahead and the first thing when I get, and I know I'm in the right place because it has DKIM, I want to make sure I have the right domain selected, and I want to create and generate a new record. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Just wanted to make sure I didn't get any errors. So I'm going to go ahead and hit generate new record. Now, a lot of email service providers can't handle a 2048 encryption. So we usually go with 1024. Again, you can play with this depending. Sometimes I just set it up at 1024, but we just learned that a lot more email providers will like the lesser digit code, and it's still pretty secure. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit generate. All right, and then it generates a record, a DKIM record, and my Google key. Now, if I was getting an error, this is where I would have gotten the error. It wouldn't even start generating that code. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back into Cloudflare. I'm going to add a record. We're going to make it a text record. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to copy some things here. So if I go back over here, I'm going to copy the google.domain key, and I am going to paste that in here. And then I'm going to take in the text record that I just created, the value, which this is the actual key, and this is obviously going to be blurred out, but because my key is going to be very specific to me, and I want to make sure I stay that private. And then when I'm done, again, text record, google._domain key, and this sometimes will be different depending on what you have. This is why you want to make sure you copy those two values, the top value here and then the bottom value here. Now, the one thing that I can tell you from experience is just make sure that there are no spaces in the front and no spaces in the back, because that will create problems for you later on. And then when you're done, all you have to do is hit save. And congratulations, you created the 3 top records that you need to help the best deliverability that you possibly can have, not only for yourself, but for your clients. And again, this is only Google Workspace. Different email service providers will have different ways of setting up these records. DMARC is usually pretty much the same. Your SPF is usually pretty much the same. The only thing that will change is the include would be the include for Microsoft Office or, let's say ActiveCampaign. When you're using ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit, you'll have to include that. But that's the only thing that will either grow or be different, because you're going to add to this as you keep getting additional services that need to use your email or send email on your behalf. The one that I can tell you is very different depending on where you go is the DKIM record. It's a little bit more complex, I think, in Microsoft, because it requires us to create 2 records. But we'll create a different video later on how to do that. But for now, we like Microsoft. We like Google. We have no problem with Microsoft, but we like Google more, and it's easier to create. Now, we're going to walk into additional steps that we also take to ensure the best deliverability. So aside from creating these records.